Welcome to Learn, Create, Sew. I absolutely love the project I'm going to share with you today. One day I was rushing to get ready to go to the airport. I had 1 hour before I had to leave to go on vacation and my purse would not fit in my bag. So in that hour I had left, I whipped up a purse just like this. Since then, I have used that purse absolutely all the time. I love to use it when I go traveling because you can fold this up super small into your luggage and it takes up hardly any space at all. I also love to use this purse when I go for walks because it's super lightweight, but the perfect size to hold cell phone, lip gloss, Kleenex, anything that's essential. This bag has 2 zipper compartments, 1 lower pocket, as well as 1 zipper compartment that's large. The bag is unlined, so it's just a single layer of fabric for the majority of the bag, but that does make it super quick and easy to construct. Let's get started. I'm going to make the wide size of this purse using a flannel fabric, and I'm going to make the thinner version using a regular cotton. The flannel that I'm using is this nice confetti dot, which I really like, and this fabric is non-directional, which means it doesn't matter which way the fabric is pointing, and so the construction of this one is just a little bit easier. I'm also going to show you using the cotton fabric how to make this purse using a fabric that does have to be facing a certain direction. So these little ladies on my fabric here, I want to always be facing up, and so I'm going to show you how to do that with this fabric. If you're looking for the quickest, simplest version, you definitely want to go with a fabric that it doesn't matter which direction it's pointing. In addition to your fabric, you're also going to need 2 zippers for your purse. I've already cut out the pieces for the non-directional purse. You can visit my website for the free cut layout for this purse. Cut layouts are shown for both widths, either the narrow or the wide width of the purse. For the outside of the purse, I've cut a rectangle that is 16.5 by 8. For the interior pocket, I've cut a rectangle that is 13 by 8. For the top front panels next to the zipper, I have a 2 by 8 and a 1 3/4 by 8. And then for the handles, I have 2 strips that are 2 by 24 inches. Again, you can also find all that information on my website linked below in the description. Let's begin the purse by making the straps. You need your 2 by 24 inch pieces. You want to take the short ends of the straps and you want to place them right sides together. You also want them to be perpendicular to each other. And we're going to sew across this corner. When you combine your rectangles on directional fabric, you want to make sure that you're looking at the top ends of each strip. So on this fabric, where the heads of my characters are, that is the top side, and where the base of my characters are, that is the end. So this would be the bottom of my strip, and this would be the top of my strip. So I want to take the 2 top ends and I want to place them right sides together so that they're perpendicular. Then I'm going to sew them together, and when I do, you'll notice that the top ends are facing each other, and this is exactly what we want. So place your fabric right sides together, perpendicular. The way I remember which direction to sew my diagonal is that you should always have a triangle hanging off the end. So I'm going to sew my diagonal this way, corner to corner, so that the triangle hangs off the point here. You'll notice if you put your diagonal the other way, you don't get that triangle. So across the square where the 2 strips overlap, draw a diagonal from corner to corner that creates a little triangle on the point. And then I'm going to head to my sewing machine and sew exactly on that line. Trim the seam allowance to 1/4 inch. Open up the strip and place it right side down. Open up the seam allowance and press. You should now have a long, straight strip for your strap that's approximately 46 inches long. To construct the strap, take your strap piece and lay it right side down. Then fold it in half, skinny like a hot dog. This will make a strip that is 1 inch wide, and then press all the way down the length. Take the time to match up those edges as best you can. Once you've pressed it in half, go ahead and open it up. The line that you've just made is your center mark. You're next going to take one of the raw edges and fold it to meet the center. You want to be careful that it does not extend beyond that line, and you do want to be as exact as you can. So fold that edge to the center and press all the way down the length of the strap. Once that's complete, take the other raw edge and also fold it to meet the center. You want to take care to make sure that these two edges do not overlap. It's okay if there's a tiny little gap in between the two, but you don't want one to overlap the other. So take that second raw edge, fold it to meet the center, and press all the way down the length of the strip. Then take your strap piece and fold in half one more time. The two folded edges should match up and all of your raw edges should be hidden inside. This will create a long strip that is 1/2 inch wide. And press all the way down the length. We're now ready to head back to the sewing machine. We're going to sew together these two folded edges. So right here along the edge that's open, we're going to sew that together using about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance or even as small as a 1/16. What you want to make sure is that you do sew all of the layers together. You don't want to get any holes. So whichever you're more comfortable with, either 1/8 of an inch seam allowance or a 1/16 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew all the way down the length of that strap to sew those two folds together. Once you've sewn your strap, go ahead and check to make sure you don't have any holes. If you do, fix those on up and then press the entire strap flat for the whole length. Pressing the strap flat will really help with the appearance of your bag in the end. Now that we've constructed the straps, let's go ahead and start on the zippers. First, take the small rectangle that is going to be the top of the bag. Depending on the size you're making, this will have a height of either 2 or 1 3/4 inches. Then take the zipper that you'd like to be on the top and place it right side down on top of your fabric. When my zipper is too large like this, I like to center it so that the stoppers fall off the edge. That way I don't have to worry about accidentally hitting the metal pieces. And I'm going to line up the bottom edge of this zipper tape with the bottom edge of the rectangle. Pin in place if you need to, and now we're going to head to the sewing machine and sew this in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You may need to have the zipper foot attached to your sewing machine to do this step. The zipper is now attached, and so I'm going to turn it over. Your zipper should now be right side up, and you want to take the fabric and gently fold it away from the zipper tape. Press this flat. We're now going to top stitch along this edge of the fabric. This will sew the fabric and the seam allowance to the zipper tape, which will help it lay really flat. We're going to sew with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way down that edge. When I do top stitching, I like to increase my stitch length to 3.5. And depending on your sewing machine, you may or may not need to use your zipper foot for this step. The top stitching is done, and I'm going to press one more time. I like to double check to make sure the top stitching went through the zipper tape, so you should now see 2 rows of stitching on that zipper tape. Next, you're going to add the center rectangle. This one should be 1 3/4 inches tall. You're going to take the zipper panel that you've constructed so far and the top edge of the center rectangle and flip it up so that right sides are touching and it's laying on top of your zipper tape. You want to make sure that the edge of this rectangle aligns with the edge of the zipper tape. You also want to make sure that the sides of the rectangle align with the sides of the rectangle that you've already attached. And we're going to sew this in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The zipper is stitched in place, and now I'm going to take the fabric and fold it down away from the zipper teeth and press. And I'm going to top stitch this in place with a 1/8 inch seam allowance, and again I'm going to make sure that my stitches go through both the fabric and the zipper tape. Let's add the second zipper. First, you need your pocket piece of fabric. This will be the piece of fabric that's 12 to 13 inches tall. Take your second zipper and place it right side up on top of the fabric. Again, make sure the zipper is centered, and you want the top edge of the zipper tape to align with the top edge of the rectangle. And we're going to sew this in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that it's sewn, let's attach this to our first zipper. When I look at my first zipper panel, this is the top edge and this is the center. I'm going to flip this down so that right sides are touching. And the bottom of the center edge will be touching the top edge of the pocket. This piece with the zipper will now be upside down. Align the sides and align the edge of the zipper tape with the edge of the fabric and stitch in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Flip the first zipper panel up and pull it away from the zipper. And let's press along that top edge. And now we're going to top stitch along this edge just on the top of the zipper with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We will be stitching through the center fabric, the zipper tape, and the pocket fabric all at the same time. I'm going to increase my stitch length to 3.5 when I do this. I'm going to check to make sure I've stitched through all my layers and that it's laying nice and flat. You'll see now that the bottom zipper is free on one edge. So while one side of the zipper tape has been sewn into the fabric, the other side is still loose. So grab the free side of the zipper tape, the one that's sticking up, and hold up your fabric. This will make the first zipper panel fall to the back, and you want the pocket piece to be in front, and you'll be looking at the edge of the zipper tape on the top. Then take the bottom edge of the pocket and fold it up to touch the edge of the zipper tape. So you're going to cover the rest of the pocket piece and align the bottom edge of the pocket with the free end of the zipper tape. Make sure that the rest of the fabric is out of the way, and then sew along this edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The zipper's attached, and now we're going to flip the bag over and place the zipper up top. So your purse will now look like this. You'll now have the top zipper. The middle zipper is still loose, but when you open it up, you will see the pocket inside. Now let's add the main section of the purse. This will be the bottom as well as the back of the purse. This is the long rectangle that's about 15.5 or 16.5 inches long. Grab the piece that has the zippers attached and hold on to the free edge of the zipper. Take your zipper panel and flip it over. You should still have one side of your zipper tape that's exposed. Make sure the fabric's out of the way. And we're going to attach this piece to this one. If you take this piece and flip it around, you can see what the bag will look like when it's complete. This is the top of the bag, the center of the bag, and the bottom. Make sure that this is the top edge of your fabric. This is what you'll see on the front of the purse. And then we're going to take this large piece and flip it over so that that top edge aligns with the edge of the zipper tape. Make sure that the sides of the rectangles are aligned and stitch in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Pin if needed. You're going to be stitching through 3 layers here. You're going to be stitching through your main fabric, through the zipper tape, as well as that 1 layer of the pocket fabric that's already been attached. Now grab the main fabric and fold it back down. Grab the top piece and hold it up. This will make the pocket fall to the back. You should now have top piece, center piece, and bottom with the pocket below. Gently pull that bottom fabric as well as the pocket down. You want your fabric to be laying flat. Gently guide it away from the zipper teeth and press. For the final step using the zipper foot, we are going to top stitch along this edge of the zipper. This is really important because it will help the fabric lay flat while we're using the purse. Now we have to be careful because we don't want to top stitch through all of the layers. If we top stitch through all of them, the pocket will be closed and not useful. So we have to open up this bottom zipper and we're going to sew just on this front section. So this part we're not going to sew on. We're only going to sew through here. We're going to be sewing through the main fabric, which is the bottom of the bag, the zipper tape, as well as one edge of the pocket. So I'm going to move the rest of the fabric out of the way and I'm going to sew just along here with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be using a 3.5 stitch length. So I am going to go slow to make sure that the rest of my fabric is not in my way while I'm sewing. Next, we're going to add the straps. So I'm going to take my strap piece and I'm going to place it right side down on top of my fabric. I want the raw edge of my strapping piece to align with the raw edge of my fabric, and I want it to be placed 3/8 of an inch away from the corner. So I'm going to get my gauge and I'm going to set it to 3/8 of an inch, and I want to place the strap 3/8 of an inch away from that edge. And pin or clip it in place. This flannel is kind of thick, so I'm going to use a clip. And then I'm going to take the other end of the strap, make sure that it's not twisted, and I'm going to take the other end of the strap and place it 3/8 of an inch away from the edge on the other side. And I'll clip that in place. I'm going to stitch the ends of the two straps in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that the strap's attached, we're about ready to sew the sides. But first we want to make sure everything's in the correct place. The first thing you want to do is open up the zippers. We want to make sure that the zipper tabs are in the center of the purse. So I'm going to go ahead and open up these zippers here. And to keep my zippers closed while sewing, I like to put a little clip on the end to keep these closed and in place. Now you don't have to do that. You can also stitch over the ends here, but I find clipping works well for me. Then I'm going to take the strap and I'm going to place it in the center of the purse. I want to make sure that it's away from all edges. I'm going to place a clip on that strap to hold it in place in the center. And then I'm going to take the bottom edge of my main fabric and I'm going to fold it up so the bag's folded in half. And I want the bottom edge to align with the top here. And I'm going to align the sides and I'm going to pin this in place. I'm going to line the corners. And I'm going to pin along the top and sides. As I pin this section, I'm going to take care to make sure that the strap is out of the way. I'm going to make sure that the zipper teeth are right next to each other as they would be when it was closed. You don't want a big gap in between the zipper teeth. And now I'm going to sew all the way along these three sides. I'm going to take care to make sure I sew these bottom corners really well, since that will hold a lot of the weight for my purse. I'm also going to make sure I backstitch over the section where the straps are to make them really strong. If you like, you can do this step with the triple straight stitch on your machine, which will make it really strong. You can also sew over it twice if you prefer. So with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew along all three sides, backstitching well and reinforcing important areas such as over the zippers, over the handles, and at the bottom corners. Now I have the front panel complete, and I'm going to grab the back panel of my bag. Now the first thing I'm going to do is check the height of my back piece. Depending on the size of the seam allowance that I have used when attaching the zippers, this may vary slightly. So I'm going to lay the front panel on top of the back panel, and I'm going to line up the top edge. I'm going to line up the sides. And you can see that the back piece of fabric extends just a little bit beyond the top piece. I'm going to trim these two to be the same. So I'm just going to cut off this bottom bit of the back side, because I want my two rectangles to be the same size when they're lying flat. Now that I know that they're the same size, I can put them together. So again, I'm going to make sure that my straps are out of the way and in the center of the bag. I'm also going to make sure that my zipper pulls are in the center, but out of the path of the seam allowance. And then I'm going to take the back piece, make sure that the top edge of the back piece is aligned with the top edge of the front. Take your back piece and place it right sides together on top of the front. Align the four corners and pin around. Take care to make sure that the straps are not in the path of the seam allowance. Also take care to make sure that the teeth on your zipper are right next to each other and do not have a big gap in space in between. Check the front and back to make sure everything looks aligned correctly. If you see something that doesn't look lined up, go ahead and fix that. Then sew around the entire bag with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can sew around twice for extra stability. You can also use a triple stitch if that's a function on your machine to make it really strong. I like to back stitch over important sections such as the sides of the zippers, as well as where the two straps are attached. Next, I'm going to grab my craft scissors. These are the scissors that I do not use for fabric, and I'm going to trim off the ends of my zipper tape. I'm going to trim them off so that they're the same size as the fabric, so they don't extend beyond. And I'm going to do the same on both sides. Take care not to actually cut the metal. And to help finish your seams, if you'd like, you can zigzag stitch all the way around the edges. This will help secure the seam and prevent fraying. You want to make sure that you stitch between the edge of the fabric and your straight stitch. You don't want your zigzag to cross that straight stitch at all. You also may want to check at this time to make sure that you have caught all of the layers of fabric and that nothing is loose or coming free. Next, trim any threads or strings that are hanging off the bag. And this is optional, but if you would like to, you can add fray check to the edges of the zipper tape, as well as to the 3 seam allowances along the sides and top. So you don't have to do this, but this does help minimize some of the fraying a bit. So if you are worried about those threads coming loose and unraveling on the edges of your fabric, go ahead and just put a little fray check along the edge. Take care to make sure that you don't drip fray check on the main part of your bag. Make sure that you're only applying it on the edge of the seam allowance. And then let it dry for a bit. Next, we're going to turn the bag right side out through our open zipper. So open up that top zipper and turn the bag right side out. And our bag is now finished. It has a nice long shoulder strap and 2 zipper compartments, 1 large compartment in the back, and then 1 smaller pocket in the front. This bag turns out great both in flannel and in cotton. This is a great project to begin practicing with zippers, as well as to make a quick purse that doesn't require any lining, and it's a lot of fun. Once you understand the techniques used to make these bags, it's real easy to adjust it. Simply by changing the size of your rectangles, you can adjust the length and width of your bag as well as the depth of the pockets. Similarly, you can use the same idea to increase the number of pockets available as well as their depth. I hope you've had fun using this tutorial. Until next time, happy sewing!